thank you very much, Alex, and everybody. I'm just going to do a quick canter through some of the Irish language manuscripts we hold at the James Hardiman Library at NUI Galway. And fittingly enough, because our university has a special relationship with the Irish language, being close to the Gaeltacht and so on. But I can't obviously cover all of what we have, so I'll just say quickly what I'm going to look at in this, if I could get the slide to change. So the principal collection of Irish language manuscripts we hold are the collection known as Lámhscríbhinní de hÍde, the hÍde manuscripts. Then we have what are somewhat unflatteringly known, I think, as Lámhscríbhinní Breise, which is extra manuscripts, as in extra to the hÍde manuscripts. And I'm going to briefly mention some early Irish printings, well, one in particular that's of great importance and which we acquired relatively recently. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll mention how you can look at our library catalogue in order to find more information about our collections. I think somebody might need to mute there, perhaps. There's a lot of noise in the background. So Lámhscríbhinní de hÍde, or the hÍde manuscripts, is the largest collection of Irish language manuscripts which we hold at the James Hardiman Library. And we are lucky to have this collection, and it was bequeathed to us under the will of Douglas Hyde. And I'm not going into Hyde's career here, obviously, but most people probably know that he was the first president of Ireland. And more importantly, probably for the scholarly community, he was an Irish scholar for long standing. In fact, he was quite an elderly man when he became the president, so his Irish language career was much longer than his career as the president. And this is a photograph of him reading in his study at his house in Rathra in County Roscommon, where he was from. And on the right, you can see a picture there of a letter which is in part of the collection. And it's signed on Scríbhinní, which was his pen name. Sometimes he signed it on Scríbhinní even. So on Scríbhinní is the little branch, and on Scríbhinní even then is the pleasant little branch. So he, as I mentioned, he had a huge interest in the Irish language throughout his life, and was, of course, the founder of nGaeilge, or the Gaelic League. And it's fitting, therefore, I suppose, too, that the archive of that organisation has recently been acquired by our library as well. So it's bringing together a lot of material relating to Douglas Hyde and his endeavours on behalf of the Irish language. I'm not going to go into huge detail about his manuscript collecting, and if people want to find out a bit more about that, the Gaelic scholar Liam O'Mahony, or William Mahon, has written about that. So you'd find out more about Hyde as a manuscript collector from his work. But I would say that a lot of Hyde's work was informed by his upbringing in County Roscommon. And at that time, Irish was probably dying out as the day-to-day language, even though there would have been quite a lot of people still able to speak it. And he recognised this, especially in the eastern part of Connacht in general, and he saw it therefore as a motivation for collecting these manuscripts and going about collecting information. And because, of course, as well as manuscripts, he collected a lot of material directly from informants as well throughout not only throughout Connacht, but particularly in Connacht. So the manuscripts that he donated to University College Galway, as it was at that time, there are 117 manuscripts in total. And he must have had this in his mind for some time, because some years before his death, he took the offices of Anya de Burka, an Irish language scholar as well, to effectively catalogue some of the manuscripts. So there are about 68 of the manuscripts described in Anya de Burka's catalogue, and the catalogue takes the form of 15 notebooks. And in the notebooks, you can see a page from one of the notebooks here. Anya has meticulously measured and described each manuscript, the actual physical manuscript, as well as summarising the type of information that's in the manuscript. And of course, Dr. Hyde's recollections of how he got the manuscript, and particularly, of course, who the scribes were. So the Boran notebooks are a very important facet of the hÍde collection. But as I mentioned, of course, there's only about 68 of the manuscripts described in them, and there are a lot more manuscripts than that. And just to mention the Irish Script on Screen project, it's been mentioned a couple of times already, but there are 9 of the hÍde manuscripts on Irish Script on Screen. So you can see some examples of the type of material that Hyde collected there. So the manuscripts, not unlike what Nadine was describing earlier, there aren't scholarly catalogues for the manuscripts yet. And I do believe there are some Irish language scholars who have it on their to-do list as well. But our archivists have listed within the archives catalogue, they have listed each manuscript with a short description of the size of the manuscript and a very broad outline of what the manuscript contains. And that's available online through our library catalogue. So it is a help, at least, for people to know. So this is an example from the hÍde manuscripts, and this is the manuscript number 18, and it's a description of the contents. So not unlike the type of things that Nadine was describing that were contained in the Ferreter manuscripts and others, the same ideas, with poems or poetry and tales and various transcriptions or scribal copies of earlier poetry, such as in this case, Donna Carua Mac Connemara. And in each case, the scribe, where the scribe's name is available to us, it's included, as well as the location. And that's one interesting feature of the hÍde manuscripts, is the range of geographical locations around Ireland from which the manuscripts come, which of course makes them very important from the study of the language as well as the contents of the manuscripts, really. And this is one of quite early manuscripts. It's 1786. So there are quite a number of 18th century manuscripts, and then the bulk of them would be early 19th century, up to about the 1830s. I think it would probably be quite the latest one. But the fact that, again, they cover a broad range of time as well is very interesting too. So moving on then from Lámhscríbhinní to hÍde, and I'll mention them again at the end when I show you how to access our archives catalogue. Just to mention some of the other manuscripts we have. So this is an example from what is known as Lámhscríbhinní Breise, which was a name assigned to them long ago, before any of us who are there now. So we hold on to it in the same way as we were talking about, or Jerry was talking about earlier, the catalogues and so on from our predecessors. And it's a manuscript called An Radara, and the scribe is a man called Taig McCorhy. And I'm afraid I don't know anything about Taig McCorhy, but I hope maybe Elaine might be able to recognise if he features in her collections in Cork. And it was donated to the library in the 1970s, and you can see it's a very nice manuscript, and it's in quite good condition as well. And like Nadine was describing earlier, it is a manuscript that had made its way to North America and then was donated back to us, as I said, in the 1970s by the descendants of the people who had brought it to North America, I think. And there's an annotation down on the bottom there. We just move on to the next slide. This is a translation of the annotation, which mentions that the manuscript was compiled by Taig McCorhy in Cork and Munster in the year of our Lord 1824, and it was for the enjoyment of Taig McCorhy and his beloved friends. So I think that harks back to what Nadine was saying earlier about manuscripts often being read out to listeners, so I think this was probably an example of that, that he put that annotation on the manuscript so that it was clear that it was for other people as well as for himself. And then just a quick mention here, because of course when the university is in Galway, and Galway is still a place where the Irish language is spoken, This item here has a connection to the late lamented Professor Richard Sharp as well. When Richard was examining our library catalogue from a distance for material that he thought he wanted to come and look at, he came across a reference to this particular item, which is a Teagasc Críostaí, or a catechism, and it was published in a year that he didn't expect it to be published. He hadn't come across an example from that year, so he emailed me and asked if I would bring it up and look at it and describe it for him. And when I went and fetched the book, I discovered it wasn't a book at all. It was actually a manuscript that had been catalogued as a book. Now, I think that might have happened in a big retrospective cataloguing project that happened about 30 years ago in the library. So that was fine. Richard was acknowledging it was a very important thing, but it wasn't exactly what he was looking for. But the name of the scribe, I was able to read the name of the scribe was a man called Pádraig Mac Glynn, or Pádraig Glynn. So I consulted someone who has a wonderful knowledge of these manuscripts, Untitled Chapter in UCC, and Pádraig was able to tell me that there is other material relating to Pádraig Mac Glynn and by Pádraig Mac Glynn in UCC library. So again, that's about making the connections of material. But from a Galway perspective, Pádraig Mac Glynn was from Annadown, just about 7 or 8 miles north of Galway city, and an area where Irish was still certainly in the 19th. This is dating from 1820, and it would certainly have been Irish speaking at that time. And just the second photograph there, you can see it's a very beautiful manuscript. It's, as I said, it's a catechism, which, you know, the attempts at illustration and everything, it's very carefully prepared by Pádraig Mac Glynn. And Pádraig O'Mackin was surprised because he said that most of the work he has come across is not religious in nature by that scribe. And then finally, in relation to our collections, this is a page from An Chumna Nua, or the New Testament, and this is the Irish language version of the New Testament, which was produced in 1602 by William Daniel, or William O'Donnell, as he describes himself in the book. And these are quite rare items now. And we happily were donated this item by the O'Donnell family from Athlone in 2019. And unfortunately, it arrived just too late to be included in a survey of the extant copies of the Irish New Testament, which was produced by Fergus O'Farrell, and it's published in the journal Ossory, Laois and Leinster in 2019. But our copy arrived to us too late for that to be included. So I suppose it's a lesson as well, in that it shows there are more copies and other items out there that come from unexpected places. And it was wonderful to have that item donated to us. So to finish up quickly, so that my next colleague can start, you may have heard that our university was the subject of a cyber attack at the end of September. So a lot of the links that people might have had to our home pages and our catalogue and that, they don't actually work at the moment. There's a lot of repair work going on. And so we have this page, which is the means by which the library resources are accessed at present. And so I have a picture of it there, and this is the URL for it here. And that's how you access the library catalogue at present. But once you get into the library catalogue, it's the same as normal. And in order to find, again, because we can't give out the original URL for our archives catalogue, you can get at it through the library catalogue. So if you search for something like the hÍde manuscripts and then click on the links, that will bring you through to, which this page here is, the archives catalogue. And within the archives catalogue, there is a number of different tabs, but one of them is one that says what is in the catalogue. You can see it there. And it lists all the different types of materials within the archival collections, and Lámhscríbhinní is there as one of them, and the Irish language collections as well, because we would have other Irish language collections, for example, the nGaeilge collection. So, you know, connections can be made between the items. So just if anybody wants to explore more about what we hold, that would be the best way to do it at the moment. And of course, please feel free to contact us if you want to ask us anything or want to come and view any material that we have.